The last time this little lady was on my show, she had her pink dick mic in hand and told me about how she was once fat shamed by Kid Rock. Well, guess what? We've been reunited and nothing's changed and nothing's left. The pink dick mic is here to stay and never went anywhere. Guys, help me in welcoming my absolute favorite. She's such a pro. She is going into this like balls to the wall. I'm like, do you want to discuss it? She's like, anything, just like throw it at me. I'm ready. The one and only Sarah Fraser. Sarah, reunited, and it feels so good. God
Taylor,
damn.
goddamn.
Deemed the celebrity whisperer by Playboy.
This is the best interview of the day.
Thanks for having me.
You hit the nail on the head.
100%.
Period, yeah.
Touchdown. You're cracking me up.
Wear them, baby.
This is good.
Taylor Ferber.
It feels so good. You know, the Dick Mike now has a stand. And it's so funny you
It is erect. It is ready to be seen. It is pronounced. Like it needs its own Instagram page, its own OnlyFans, Sarah. Let it be our ticket out of here, honestly.
Oh my God, let it be our ticket out. And then you introduced me as a little lady, and I was thinking, God, I really feel fat today. And that then reminded me of Kid Rock. That's right. Kid Rock would not let me on his bus. He looked me up and down. Too fat for that bus.
And he let me know. He let me know with his eyes. I was not going to his honky tonk party that night. It was
nope. We were not honky tonkin'.
Sarah, tell us what is going on in your world with the Sarah Fraser show before we hop in all this. And like I said before, I'm so excited because it is just like there's been so much going on and we're gonna have so much fun today in the pop culture of it all. It's like such a nice escape and breath of fresh air. So tell us a little bit what's going on in your world before we get into Bryan Freedman's pants, basically.
Oh my God. I am obsessed with the Justin Baldoni-Lively case. There's so many layers to it and so many things on the line. So that case I really like. Okay, the podcast. My podcast, I put out new episodes 7 days a week. It's a full pop culture show. I really provide escapism, okay? I often will get reviews. This is nails on a chalkboard. I lost brain cells listening. That is the type of content that I like to do. Come on in.
That is what I live for. Those types of things.
I live for those comments, I mean, every once in a while, I should say, we do have very fascinating, deep guests. We had Marianne Williamson came over to your space for a little bit when she was running for president last year. Yeah. And actually this week, it's a big week for the show because it's the 1-year anniversary of Drake Bell giving me his exclusive interview.
That was huge for you.
Huge. He catapulted me into a new level after the Quiet on Set documentary. So can you believe it was this week, 1 year ago, that documentary came out. And then that interview came about through a mutual friend. And he originally was going to do just 20 minutes. And then he stayed for an hour and 20. And that was like the biggest viral moment I've ever had.
It's such a testament to you. And it's funny, Sarah, because I actually met his brother, Rob. And we actually did a little bit of business together. And I told, and he was so low key, by the way. He was like, oh, yeah, I have, it was in like a cool way, in a modest way. He's like, oh, yeah, my brother, he was on Nickelodeon, he was like, Drake Bell, like so undercover. And I was like, oh my God, he did the interview with my friend, Sarah Fraser. And he knew right away. He was like, oh my God, he loved that, So it's just, like I said, such a testament to you. And what I love about you is you can be so versatile. Like you're so sharp and you're so funny. And I have never had a problem with you going in and out of like pop culture, politics, like whatever it is, you're just like game and ready to go. So
thank you. I'm fascinated. I think like you, right? There's so many different things. And I just think now the lines are so blurred, but politics and pop culture, I mean, they really intersect. Celebrities now are more invested in politics than ever before, so it's really just a whole mashup. And I think too, the days of having a show where you just did one thing just don't exist. I think my audience is very smart, even though I kind of joke and they love escapism. But, I think they want to learn something. They want to know people's opinions. They want to know like what people are saying about something and maybe they think differently. So thank you. I do like a variety.
Well, speaking of variety, before we get into it and you give us your awesome update, because you need to give us a 411 in the tea. Like I said, you are my go-to for the whole Baldoni-Lively fallout. But can you tell us a little bit about your sister wives fan base and the niche you created and what you were telling me before about the commitment to this.
Okay, there is a show called Sister Wives, if your audience is not familiar, and it's actually now one of the longest running reality shows on television. It started in 2010. It's on its 19th season. Yeah, I know. People forget this. Like, think about that. Like, it started in the early aughts, like when television, you got to think like the Osbournes were in the early aughts, Jessica Simpson, Nick Lachey. So it started around there. TLC at that point had John and Kate plus 8, which everyone knows was enormous. John was so famous for a hot second when they were divorcing. Okay, so it starts then. It is still running, one of the longest running reality shows, and it's about this polygamy family. Cody Brown has 4 wives, or had 4 wives. 3 of them have left, and now he's booed up with just 1. They have 18 kids in total. They put the kids on TV since they were like babies. And then here we are in 2025, and the fan base is rabid. And I started
rabid.
I told you before we
they
started.
They are insatiable for this show.
Could sniff their underwear. They would line up. Like that is, it's so, I'm telling you. No detail is off limits.
I can't believe that this show was overshadowed basically by like Jessica Simpson's can of tuna on Newlyweds, and none of us knew.
None of us knew.
This whole time. Wow.
I really, during the pandemic, so I'm going to say 2020, 2019, I started watching a show called Welcome to Platteville, which was about this uber religious family in Georgia, and their kids never had cell phones. They'd never drank like a Coca-Cola. They were completely sheltered. They lived off the grid. And I just started to follow the shows, and then I got on to Sister Wives, and I did a couple of recaps because I'd never watched it, and I was like, what am I watching? And all these people started downloading the podcast. It was crazy. It was crazy. Well, and so from that, I've just continued recaps and pop culture, and Mary Brown's been on my show. And
this is a little impromptu, but as like silly as it is and sort of like reality TV fodder and obviously escapism and entertaining, following the show, because obviously it is such an unconventional way of living, is there, this is like deep for a second, but is there actually something that you kind of like have taken away from it about people and relationships and like this way of living, something that you were like, actually?
Well, I think I already knew this, but I think open relationships and polygamous relationships never work, no matter how they sell it. And for 10 years, they really sold it like it really did work. And that was why people tuned in, because for a long time, they seemed like this cohesive unit that was raising kids together and was working toward this collective goal. Now we're kind of finding out, there was really trouble in paradise from a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So I think, but I love to just see how other people live. I'm a person, I like to go into open houses just to like look in people's homes. You know what I mean? Like
Sarah's like, what's it called? Peeping Tom. Like Sarah's like, peeping Tom. But you're like the hottest peeping Tom ever. So it works for you. No, it's on brand and it works for you. I was going to say something similar, Sarah, which is, and again, this is kind of deep and not to like psychoanalyze our entire society, but like I feel people are so kind of trapped in the boxes that they are put in and often kind of like restless and unhappy that, I don't know, perhaps it has such a cult thing because people are curious. And it's like, wait, I mean, it's kind of, we may get to this, but it's like the White Lotus effect, which is satire. But I think it kind of like people are curious, I think, and it may open their minds to like, wait, what is this about? Like, what? I don't know. Just my speculation, perhaps. But
totally. No, I think you're exactly right. And it's been fascinating to watch how certainly, obviously, it didn't work for this family, but how the women like loved him, like Cody Brown, so much. I mean, they really hung in there when, to me, I think to anybody watching, it was very obvious he had a favorite wife. But the love that they felt and dedication, you can see how people could think like maybe this could work, and so it's been interesting to follow those women. And I think the most interesting part about the show is what's happened in the past year or two, seeing these women that were very strongly in this religious AUB, which is a sect of the Mormon church that Mormons really kind of reject because AUB members practice polygamy. So it's been interesting to see all those women come out of that religious belief and really live lives that are not religious anymore. It does seem like the best part of it is like just starting of how they're going to reinvent their lives in their 50s, which I think a lot of people can relate to, and come out of a very religious, a lot of them didn't drink. Now they're like doing shots,
it's just a whole new
world.
Life. Like,
yeah.
Veil peeled back. It's kind of like what we were talking about before this, almost like my prior life of doing really uncomfortable celebrity junkets in Hollywood. And it's like I left it out baptized. And it's like, wow, that was like a whole other world a lifetime ago. And now I can see this whole new world. It's like, yes. Wow. Yeah. Didn't even know what I was missing. But wow. Women, as we know, are super competitive. And so that whole sitch, like, I don't know how that could go down. But speaking of competitive women, is the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni saga, which you are my go-to gal whenever I need brushing up on this. So like I said, Sarah, we are so excited to hear an update from you because it's been a hot minute since I talked about it. So give us like a little bit of the latest, unpack it, and what your thoughts are. And does Blake honestly have a shot at like anything at this point? What's going on?
That's a great question. Does she have a shot? I think ultimately, no, she doesn't. I think that she is going to, first of all, I believe that they will settle, even though Bryan Freedman, who is the like epic attorney of Justin Baldoni, who's been the genius person kind of driving this and releasing all the text messages and putting everything out there and going, okay, Blake Lively, we know years ago had reported a hairdresser for sexual harassment to the union. She knew what to do if she truly felt uncomfortable. She never filed a complaint, an official complaint, while they were filming It Ends With Us. So he has just been so amazing at strategically laying this out that Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Productions are really the victims here. The two latest things that have happened is one, Ryan Reynolds, I don't know if you saw it, but probably about a year or two ago, Ryan Reynolds did a spoof, a nice pool spoof. And of course, we know he plays Deadpool. And it really made fun of like a feminist director who was a predator. And, everybody knew it was really spoofing Justin Baldoni.
With the man bun and the whole thing, yeah.
The man bun, the whole thing, right? Complete ripoff. So this
rip off. You're like, that is trademark on Justin Baldoni, okay?
Yeah. Stop ripping off his man bun, Ryan Reynolds.
That is copyright infringement. No.
So this week, Ryan Reynolds' attorneys have said, look, we want Ryan Reynolds out of this lawsuit and this whole, because essentially Justin Baldoni is saying by Ryan Reynolds doing this spoof and calling him a predator, that's hurt his career because he's been labeled as a predator. And so what's fascinating is Ryan Reynolds' attorneys don't deny the fact that that spoof was based on Justin Baldoni. They basically admit that it was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They claim is this is not defamatory to Justin Baldoni if Ryan Reynolds really believed that Justin Baldoni was a creep and a predator, which they saying
assassinate the character in Deadpool in front of a flower shop, right? Which was Blake Lively's character's thing in It Ends With Us. Yeah.
Wow. So that's what they are arguing. And they're saying, Baldoni's feelings are just hurt. His feelings are hurt, but that doesn't constitute defamation. And it doesn't constitute hurting someone's career. So Judge Lyman, the judge overseeing this, has a big decision to make. If there is anything there, or if that part will be thrown out, Ryan Reynolds gets thrown out of it, we'll see. That's really big. And then Freedman and Justin Baldoni fired back at the New York Times. The New York Times also wants out of this. They are being sued for $200 million because basically, Freedman is saying, look, they altered text messages by removing emojis. They knew this complaint and they had access to it for weeks before they published it, not giving Baldoni the right amount of time. They contacted him on a Friday night on a holiday weekend to comment. They're using their freedom for the press as their excuse, like we didn't want to be scooped. But basically they knew, according to Freedman, that the moment they dropped that New York Times article, they would destroy a man's career. That would be it. They would defame him and anybody in it because they really didn't give them proper time to respond. So Baldoni has basically, they have asked the judge, no, don't dismiss it. The New York Times has filed to dismiss. And the judge has said, okay, I'm going to review this. I'm going to, give you guys more time if there's any other evidence you can give to me. And Baldoni is saying, no, make a decision. We want this case to move forward against the New York Times. They have defamed us. They've defamed people in it. So we will see. And basically, Freedman, they're arguing that they have used and misused their freedom of speech and the right of press for a very long time to get away with essentially manipulating people, a lot of people have issues with the New York Times for so many reasons. And essentially Freedman and Baldoni want them held accountable. So that will be, I mean, this case is, to me, this case is so much deeper than Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. I mean, to me, that was just two crazy jilted lovers.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, if the New York Times loses, that is an enormous another blow to mainstream media. I mean, to me, I'm like, I will never subscribe to these newspaper outlets again if they lose, because that basically shows they knew deliberately to remove certain innuendo that would paint him as a sexual harasser. Though again, we'll see, they could win. But if they lose, they deliberately helped Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, probably being pushed by their celebrity to, move a story in the narrative that Blake and Ryan wanted, and they purposely helped. So huge that way, it's big. And then really, I think Me Too is on the line for this in a big, big way. I mean, this could be the beginning of a backlash to Me Too. And if she loses, and a lot of people feel that she will, if more her feelings were hurt and, she thought he was creepy, which is what a lot of people feel, he is, because he's very into his Baha'i faith, which is all about vulnerability. And, everybody comes around and holds hands and shares the darkest secret. A lot of people feel like she just creeped out by him, but that doesn't mean he's a sexual harasser. So if she loses, I mean, I think it will set Me Too back a very big step, because a lot of women are going to be quite afraid to come out because she's such a huge name and misusing this platform.
Wow, Sarah. I feel, unfortunately, with all of this, that the damage has already been done with Me Too, unfortunately, because of all of the influencers and like citizen journalists, like all of the receipts and everything. They're mostly Team Baldoni, right? And have an axe to grind with Blake Lively because of this and because of the Me Too stuff. And you have so many actual rape and assault survivors who have come out being like, what the F? Like, is this woman serious? But after hearing all of that, I thought that, and that is and was, a huge stake that I personally had in it. I mean, I was in Hollywood when Me Too first started, reporting on it, the whole thing. So that for me was my kind of like dog in this race. But I have to say, after hearing you, like I said, I think that's kind of already dead at this point, unfortunately. But after hearing the update, I actually feel like the New York Times thing, because, that has been my hill to die on for so long, is how skewed and corrupt the media is. And we just see it time and time and time again. I mean, even like with the election, right? And like the Washington Post employees revolting because Jeff Bezos wouldn't support, wouldn't have the paper endorse Kamala. Like there's just so, back with Barry Weiss at, when she was the opinion editor at New York Times, like there's just so many examples. And this people are so fed up with it, but because this is more mainstream and pop culture, maybe people will really be like, oh, like this is real. Like, what are they doing over there? This is a circus, and how can they get away with this? And wasn't there, Sarah, receipts that showed that the New York Times was in cahoots with Blake and Ryan like months prior, and then, like you said, dropped it in the 11th hour without, like, there's just so much that's sus. That's like, that's not journal. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, that's not,
big argument is there are photos, right? There were photos that they created for this story, and there is a metadata date, okay, when they're created, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
Weeks.
Yes.
So like, I mean, back in like October, they were well tipped off working this story, right? Now, the New York Times, so this will be interesting because Freedman has not backed down from this point, but the New York Times says that those dates are randomly generated, that they are not actually specifically when you create an image, that they're randomly generated. I don't know if that is true or not. It seems like web sleuths say it's not, but again, that's just the web sleuth.
I love that.
I mean, here I am. I'm a web sleuth. Whatever. So they claim that that's not true, that the metadata stamp is, in fact, when an image begins to be created. I don't know.
Yeah.
Freedman seems to say that, yeah, like that metadata number, that date is like when that graphic designer starts that image. So I don't know. I mean, that would be very, very telling. But there's a lot on the line with this story, which I think is why the interest has continued. And of course, I think Blake and Ryan did not anticipate it would have this much
of a backlash,
staying power,
public backlash. Now, they're supposed to actually go to court a year from now, next March. Now, is that, you said if they settle prior, because there's so many, I feel like, lawsuits at this point. What is the March? What is that one for? And if they, obviously, if they settle these prior, we won't ever see them go to court. I take it.
Right. The March one is for Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni to go to court if he sexually harassed her and if his team specifically.
And Wayfarer. Yes. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. So the New York Times is a totally different. That's next March is like the big kahuna of if he harassed her. Okay. Wow.
But I highly doubt it'll
get that far.
No. I mean, Bryan Freedman says that, they want to clear this man's name in court, which of course they do, right? Because, I mean, then it opens up.
Yeah.
You can subpoena and depose Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman and Sony Studios. And what did Sony and executives really know? I mean, but it's just Ryan Reynolds' career is not going to be impacted by this. He is such a franchise in Deadpool.
Yeah.
I guarantee Sony people are calling him and are listening to him bitch and yada, yada, yada. But they want this to go away. They don't want their executives, I'm sure they're offering him an enormous deal to settle, and you'll be the Deadpool face for the next decade. And we'll you can make money off your dolls or whatever we'll create from your image. I mean, there's no way. And Taylor Swift is very interesting in this. Taylor Swift has come out in the past. She actually paid Kesha's legal bills against Dr. Luke. Mm-hmm. I mean, she was sexually harassed herself when a radio DJ put his hand up her skirt. She sued him for $1. She won. Mm-hmm. Then she donated money to women to prevent sexual harassment and to help them fight in legal cases. So where is Blake Lively's bestie and the godmother? I mean, if this was real, isn't Taylor Swift? I mean, she's never been afraid to get into it prior. So where is she now?
That's what is so fascinating to me. And you have to think, it makes us question everything, because her team has come out with statements, Sarah, right? Saying basically Taylor wants no part of this narrative and she's taking a space from Blake and this and that a year ago. Yeah, you're exactly right. She's the godmother of one of their children. She's braiding Blake's hair in like the box at the Super Bowl, like all this. So what is actually happening? Is this to protect Taylor Swift's brand? Was all the stuff that Taylor Swift did prior lip service, although I find that hard to believe considering, like you said, she herself got her ass grabbed unwarranted by it. We saw the photo. So what? Like what actually, it's like what is or isn't the motive? It just makes everything so sus. Well, and I don't like that. I want to know. I want to know.
In my opinion, there's two motives. One, Blake Lively has already said in interviews that she likes to come on the set and make her footprint. And she's already said, in text messages and emails we've seen between Baldoni and Lively that Ryan Reynolds has encouraged her to go on to sets and rewrite scripts and, really insert herself, right? Because Ryan clearly does that as well. So I think one of the motives is they wanted the rights to Colleen Hoover's book. It's no secret that Lively and Colleen Hoover became very close. Mm-hmm. At first, Colleen Hoover, and I think still is Team Blake Lively. I think the only way that Baldoni and Wayfarer could forfeit future rights because they own the rights to some other books of Colleen Hoover's is a morality clause.
Yeah.
That could get them released and Colleen to own the rights to the film again. So I think that was one motivation. And the other motivation is, I actually believe this, and Bryan Freedman has said this, is I think Blake Lively was genuinely creeped out by him. I think she really thought he was weird. He was creepy. She didn't feel comfortable on the set. But like Bryan Freedman says, okay, you can feel that way, but that doesn't mean by law that this man sexually harassed you.
I was just going to say that's a stretch of the imagination, right? To be
Right.
assault. Like,
this isn't a Harvey Weinstein where
right.
he brought her to the hotel room and she thought she was, that she was going to be editing something. And then he, sexually assaults her, or Bill Cosby that she's been, drugged and raped. I mean, this is, I think she genuinely thinks he's a weirdo. I think Jenny Slate thinks Jamie Heath that they're weird. But again, that doesn't, doesn't mean that they sexually harass those women.
Well, if they settle, it'll be interesting to see. I agree with you. I doubt that Ryan Reynolds has so much clout. I doubt, but it'll affect him. But I do wonder if it'll affect Blake Lively getting work, because it's like, what a headache. If I would be like, I want to go nowhere near that. But it could also get good press, and Hollywood is so shameless. No press is bad press if she's attached to something. So, we will see. But in the meantime, Sarah, Godspeed, because I've seen influencers be like, Blake and Ryan's team just put me on notice personally, and like call the TikTok headquarters and had me banned and censored basically and flagged. So best of luck to you. Thank you for doing the Lord's work. You are also doing the Lord's work. This seems to be like the unhinged women. My words, not yours. Theme today, but you are also doing the Lord's work and watching the Baldwin reality show. And thank you for that, because there is a clip of Hilaria Baldwin from Boston. Okay. Not the one of her where she forgets, Sarah, quote, what the word is for onion. She's like, how you say, did you see that? I was on the floor. I was like, lady, you're from Boston. You know what an onion is, okay? But there's a new clip of her that's going viral in which she's on a red carpet with Alec. And for the first time, I think I actually felt sympathy for Alec Baldwin, because she totally emasculates him. The interviewer asks something and she starts answering, and Alec just chimes in like, you're going to be amazing, something. She literally cuts his balls off and his pride and dignity. And she's like, when I'm talking, you're not talking. And she says to the interview, like, this is why, and does this like hand gesture. She's like, this is why we need to just like cut him out of the show, their reality show. He literally is like stunned. Okay, his soul leaves his body basically, and he is like a dog with his tail between his legs, and literally so sorrowful. Just mid-interview, just walks off out of the frame, out of the interview. So I don't know if you have any thoughts, given that you've watched the show, and people think it's bananas that they even have the show, given all the Russ, tragedy that went on and all of that. But Sarah, what is going on in the Baldwin house? Help us understand.
We're 4 episodes into the Baldwins, and I actually really enjoy the reality show. I know this is where your listeners and you like depart from having any interest in me, but anyhow,
and you. No.
I actually really like it. And there's a couple of reasons. One, they address every single thing. So she addresses the accent. Now, a lot of people don't like, she says she was code switching because her parents are from Spain and she spent most of her childhood in Mallorca, even though she was born in Boston. And so she went in and out of this like Spanish life and American life. And she just speaks in this Spanglish, and that's who she is, right? So she kind of, there's something actually likable about her and more likable about Alec. Okay. Alec kind of makes fun of his kids. That's very disarming and kind of interesting. And the thing I will say,
like roast his kids. I actually like that.
Like, these kids are feral. They're in a gang. He's like, and he'll narrate like what they're doing. And the boys, I mean, it's funny. They're like in a gang, they're like, because they have 7 kids. So they actually, I thought, handled, and I feel like most people don't handle it well. They really put the tragedy of Rust in the forefront of every single episode. And they talk about Helena.
Okay. Okay.
The director that was killed. And they basically say all the time, like, our lives will never be the same. And like, no matter what, we have to remember this is like a woman, a little boy lost his mother. Like I actually, and Ilaria is they're both like super emotional about it and how heartbroken they are for the family. I find them to be sincere. A lot of people do not. A lot of people find them insincere, that he's trying to do this to save his career. A lot of people feel they need the money. He just did a Planet Hollywood hosting that he reportedly got $500,000 to be there all night. So a lot of people feel that they need the money
Where did all his money go, Sarah? He's an A-list actor. Is it on all these kids? Is this Discovery Zone full of kids? Like, where is all this? That would be, I mean, the Planet Fitness, it's speaking.
For
That's
Planet
something.
Hollywood, sorry.
But still, I mean,
Same place.
not to knock any planet, anything, fitness or Hollywood. I'm just saying, but actually both of them, because neither of you sponsored this show, which how dare you? No, but and it's funny too, Sarah, because that actually is the first thing. I also am just so jaded from my years in Hollywood, but that's the first thing that went through my mind was, did every publicist, producer, AP, whatever it was, be like, you have to talk about this in every ep, or literally everybody will hate you forever. Like, that's the first thing that went in my mind. I was like,
A lot of people feel that same way. I just find them to be really sincere in it. I think nothing surprises me. People live so high. They live such high lifestyles. So even if you're making millions of dollars a year, it doesn't take long to spend it, even though you and I are like, what? I mean, he's probably made $100 million in his career, but certainly people have gone broke with $100 million. Maybe not. Maybe he has plenty of money, but a lot of people feel that they are doing it for the money. I do think you see a softer, funnier, more emotional side of Alec. Mostly we usually see Alec when he's beating up paparazzi or a Trump impersonator. So
right.
it's at least a different side of Alec Baldwin. But we will see. It's got 8 episodes on TLC, and I'll be curious to see. I do think it will get a season 2, but I don't know if they can keep the interest going.
Sarah, what's with this moment of her just completely cutting his balls off? Like, is that a dynamic at all represented in the show? And I'm thinking, like, damn, being a hot young wife only takes you so far, because he's literally like seething in his mind. Honestly, as he should, it was like so uncomfortable to watch. Or
That's a great question. No, on the show, it seems much more that she caters to him, that it's really about Alec and, getting him through emotionally this rust, trial.
Right.
It seems like she really caters to him. The other theory is a lot of people feel he's pulling a Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer famously put Camille Grammer, his ex-wife, on RHOBH, on Beverly Hills, so he could work on divorcing her and having an affair. A lot of people feel that Alec is like, okay, yeah. Let's get her out, get her out there. I don't know. Again, on the show, he seems so grateful, in love, finally found love. And he was the one that wanted all these children because he had such a difficult divorce with Kim Basinger and with his daughter, Ireland. Like, it was so contentious until recently. Yeah. So, he's like the one that really wanted family and seems so crazy about her. So, no, they don't seem dismissive on the show. They don't towards each other.
Interesting. Well, maybe you guys will, be inclined to tune in. Let us know. I'm kind of intrigued now. Maybe I'll give the pilot a little whirl.
There's some good reality TV out right now.
You are like, do not sleep on the Baldwin show, okay? Speaking of dysfunctional, crazy families, we have to, Sarah, talk about White Lotus and this last episode. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, a little bit of a spoiler here. And if you don't watch it, we're going to fill you in. It will be just as entertaining, I promise, because this is batshit crazy. So obviously the show is always viral. It's huge. I love it. I think what Mike White is doing is so genius. I think it's so unique and offbeat and, poignant. And I like sat every episode. So, and you can always expect it to just like get weird. Like, you can always expect things to get weird. So in this last episode, there were 2 scenes that the internet just their jaws were on the floor over. One is Sam Rockwell makes a guest appearance and he tells this whole story. In some, he talks about how he basically had this sex addiction with these Asian women and it was like thousands and thousands, right? And so eventually wanted to like flip the roles, got involved with what he calls like a lady boy or something, like a lady boy, and dresses as an Asian woman and have the lady boy do him so he can feel what it's like for the Asian women he's been doing, then to hire Asian women to come watch so he can watch them watch. Like, it's just a whole it's all just genius. Literally, I just was like, what just happened? Like, I actually did depart, Sarah. Like, you had just said, like, I don't even know what realm I entered. The other was an incest kiss, which we've from the first episode, he has planted these seeds of these three siblings and like weird something going on. And you see a quick like incest makeout kiss, like drunken partying night where they're the two brothers and they're with these two girls, and it's almost like they were kind of egged on and like truth or dare, but it lingered and got a little weird. Sarah, the internet was more shook over the incest kiss. I was more shook over the Asian role play lady boy stuff. Like, my brain was in a pretzel. What do you make of it, and what had you more just doing mental twister in this?
I'm with you. I think this Sam Rockwell made me do mental twisters far more. It was just the way Sam delivered it, the reaction. Who's the other?
It's he's so good. He's so hot in a weird way. Walt something. I follow him now. It's with a G.
Walt Goggins is such an actor.
Yes.
His face is all of our faces. And, he's there on a mission to kill potentially this guy that killed his father. I mean, there's the whole build up of these White Lotus, and season 2 by far has been my absolute favorite with Jennifer Coolidge so far. But because this one, a lot of people's complaints is it's a little slow. Like, where is it going? But, that's the whole thing, right? We're watching a slow car crash, right? We know that there's going to be this big climax of like issues. Climax is probably not the right word, but it
feels like too soon. No,
very too soon. So, no, I'm with you. The Sam scene was far more disturbing to me than the brothers kissing, although that is getting really weird. It's getting really weird.
You talk about the slow burn, and I actually look because I'm like, how long is he going to give us blue balls like this? Like, we want to see where this is all percolating towards. Sarah, the other 2 seasons, like what just happened basically would have almost basically been the season finale. So I'm like, we can't just there has to be so much more. So I don't know if this one is going to happen to just like run longer, but we will see. I don't know. My quick take, and this may be, this little hot take on the whole thing, is I love what Mike White is doing, because kind of like the sister wives thing in an odd way, it kind of opens up and cracks open like really weird parts of humanity and the human psyche and mind. And even if it's like the weird like crevices, no pun intended, that we don't want to look into, and he makes us think about it. And I kind of was like, good for Mike White, even though this is all so twisted and crazy. Good for him for just like having the balls to put it out there in such a mainstream way. It's so like egregious and in your face, and not being worried about any sort of like backlash. And I thought, how interesting. I was like, this is the way to do it when the backdrop is like, we have extreme like woke ideology, so to speak, that tries to like normalize, like they're the other end of it, which is I'm like, this is not the way. Like, they shove down your throats to normalize things as far as like pedophilia. And that's where it's like, I see the kind of like dichotomy. And all I have to say with that is like, again, that's sort of the backdrop of it. And I feel like how Mike White does it in that sort of, in this, culture is really kind of masterful, because it's like in a way that like, it's crazy, but it kind of makes you think, and you're like, wait,
Well, and if you recall in season 2, what was so controversial is, he had the group of gay guys that were so evil, and
yes,
in film, right? In film and television, usually the gay guys are fun. They're funny. They're the airheads. They're, they're the gay bestie. And in season 2 of White Lotus, they were the conniving, evil, murdering, horrible gays. They were like, so,
that's right.
He really does take these things and he flips them, the stereotypes, the things. He really is so genius. But that was season 2. People were very much like, wow, they had never seen a group of gay men be murderers.
That's right. That's right.
And
well,
evil.
Last thing, Sarah, because I sadly have to let you go. So this is just going to be quick, hot take from you in rapid fire. And it's cool because we didn't want to give this or this guy too much airtime anyway, because we know it's just like unhinged and everything he's doing at this point is just clickbaiting for attention. But Kanye West and the whole throwdown with Kim and their daughter North, and using North in one of her voice in one of his songs, even though Kim like said no and she had the rights and all this. Now he's throwing Beyonce and Jay-Z's kids under the bus, calling them retarded. I think one does speculative have like stunted growth or issues. So I'm interested more than this guy's like whatever. He's so past the point and just deranged. But my thought is like, what is Kim thinking? Like her point of view and her vantage point, because she is such a smart, savvy businesswoman, as much as people knock her. I don't know, Sarah. What do you think and what do you make of it? Because I'm just like, how did she wind up in a marriage with him, and how is she kind of dealing with all this now?
So many layers to unpack
I'm like,
there.
so in 60 seconds, Sarah.
Well, first of all, I don't think she's going to address it because, they go by the playbook of Chris and Robert Kardashian Sr., who they famously had this very amicable divorce and he was always like hanging around. And, of course, he was part of OJ Simpson's law team. But anyway, they always got along and that was their whole thing, right? So, and that's why you always see Khloe talk really well about Lamar Odom and helped him through his drug. They kind of have this thing where they like are with men, they divorce them, and then they like take care of them. It's just this like thing. So I don't think we'll ever see her say anything publicly. She doesn't say much about him. I don't think she will. She'll put the kids first. I mean, I think Kim's a good mother. How she ended up with him, I mean, I think it's either two things. It was for the fame and the talent when everyone believed he had that. And he gave her a lot of legitimacy. I mean, he really did. If people remember 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, Kanye West was the biggest artist, music artist, genius, music producer that was out there. And also this fashion icon. I mean, Yeezys, what he did with Adidas, like, he's since lost a lot of that because of obviously, everything's kind of gone south. But Yeezy is still a huge brand and thing. So I think it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say if they were genuinely in love or if she saw this as a person that would give her the clout and the everything she needed. And then once he went south, I don't know. And it's hard to say. I mean, what do you think? Do you think their relationship was ever genuine, or do you think this was, people?
I think it was like, I think you really hit on something, and that was my gut instinct is sort of like how do I say this? Like the life in the fast lanes, for lack of a better term of it all, and like the creative genius and fusing them together, and the two of them is like, remember he would like do all her projects with her and dress her like, so I don't know if it was just that sort of, getting swept up in all of that, but I don't know. Well, I agree though. I think she's too smart press wise, media wise to address it. But what do you make of him taking shots at throwing Jay-Z and Beyonce's kids under the bus?
I mean, the guy is like posted about Nazis and how great Hitler. Nothing shocks me, and I think part of that is just for attention. I think because like some ways we're totally over celebrity, and then in other ways, like he's just always going to have fans. Like people are not they're not going to care. And I think he knows that about the zeitgeist. Like I think he just knows that you can say anything you want, and I think that's his whole point, right? Is like freedom of speech and push the boundaries and. I'm sure he remember, I mean, he had something really fascinating going when he started his own church, right? That was like
That's right.
Interesting movement. I thought he was going to really do something with that. So there's no doubt creatively he's amazing, but I don't think anyone looks at him as a well-adjusted human being that you're taking advice from or looking up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah. And
exactly.
To come for Jay-Z's kids and stuff, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I just, right. I mean, to me, he is such a person. I could care less speaking about him. I mean, I think Kim is far more interesting in what he's done than him. It's just like,
agreed. Well, Sarah, I'm collectively speaking for all of us, the general population, certainly My audience, we absolutely adore you. Thank you so much. Such a pro, as always, such a vet. So much fun. Tell us one last time where we can find you. And please, on your way out, give that pink dick Mike a kiss for us.
It does look like I'm eating a dick the whole time, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Anyway.
So, yeah, exactly.
You know what?
We like it like that.
We like it like that. Sarah Fraser Show. I drop a pop culture pod daily. You can get your fix. I'm the Sarah Fraser Show everywhere. I really love TikTok. We're on YouTube if you prefer to watch your podcasts. And yeah, I do. I try to always surprise people with the interviews, with the recaps, and just kind of keep you informed and let you escape for 40 minutes or yell at me, one or the other.
She is the real deal. You heard it from me. Seal of approval, of course. Sarah, thank you so much. You're the best.
Bye, Taylor. Good to see you, girl.